Disclaimer, this is still my opinion and mine alone. You are, once again, welcome to yours. I am just sharing mine with you. So after seeing how many views the first part of this got, I debated on whether or not I should make a part 2. Eventually, after reading through the comments, doing some research, and running a poll, I decided I might as well give this a shot. This one's a bit different from what you'd expect. Yes, I am covering different games this time around, but I'd also like to expand upon a few of the games I barely talked about. I also changed the name for the categories because it sounds cool, I guess. Oh, one more thing. Just want to make it clear that I am not only going to talk about superhero games on this channel from now on. My next couple of videos are going to be about video games, just not superhero games. Just wanted to get that out there. So without further ado, I hope you enjoy and please consider subscribing. First off, my new favorite game, Marvel Spider-Man 2. I briefly mentioned this last time, but I didn't talk about it to avoid spoiling those who had yet to see anything about this game. This time around is different though, because the game is about 5 to 6 months old. Yeah, I'm not kidding. And while I do love this game, it does have its flaws because nothing is perfect. However, unlike other YouTubers, I am going to tell you my thoughts on the game in a quick fashion. No nitpicking, just what stood out to me, whether good or bad. Except anything about Venom because I made an entire video dedicated to him. Go watch it. The game is gorgeous, even though graphics haven't always been a massive issue for me. This is the best version of Kraven we'll ever get. Yuri as Wraith should have had a main role, as she had a main role in the first game in its DLC. Peter isn't really nerfed in my eyes. Miles and Peter are awesome together. I'm fine with Peter taking a break. I love how they did Cletus Cassidy and built up to him becoming Carnage. I don't get why they didn't add a few certain suits from the first game. I enjoyed Miles' more grounded arc, and I also enjoyed the black suit arc with Peter, although I get why people wanted it to be longer. Miles' evolved suit would be fine if it wasn't shoehorned into the story.
That shit's ass, bro.
Mr. Negative didn't feel forced like I expected he would be and actually had a good arc. The traversal is peak and even better than the previous games combined. Sometimes the game can feel a little rushed. And finally, I enjoyed this game a lot. Yes, there were things that could have been improved, but overall I enjoyed the crap out of this, even if it's flawed. A good game is allowed to be flawed. Remember that. Moving on, after the release of the god-awful Suicide Squad game, more on that later, I had the urge to go back and play the old Arkham games. Long story short, I am now hooked on Arkham Knight. But before we talk about Knight, let's delve into the usually neglected Arkham game, Arkham Origins. I barely talked about it either last time. Origins, at heart, might seem like it barely changed much from City like many critics at the time believed, but I think it's fine. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Origins also undoubtedly had the greatest boss fights, with my favorite being Deathstroke's. No random henchmen attacking, no stupid gimmicks, just you and him throwing hands equally. The fact that it happened so early too is awesome. Origins also had the only instance I know of Roger Craig Smith voicing Batman, which makes me want him to return as a younger Batman once again, as he could definitely pull it off.
Because I am the reason the criminals breathe easier when the sun rises. So no, Alfred, I am not in over my head.
Origins might not be as good as his counterparts, but that doesn't make it a bad game. I just wish it was treated better. We deserve a remastered port. But back to Knight. After the travesty of Kill the Justice League, I decided it was about time I go back to Arkham Knight because I never actually beat it. And wow. Putting aside the annoying ass Batmobile tank gameplay, the combat is so fluid to the point where I can feel every hit landed on an enemy. And hitting a combo has never been so satisfying before. The graphics are also amazing and have aged like wine. This is so cool to look at, especially considering how Age's predecessors, Arkham City and Asylum, could look at times. The story, while not the best, is enjoyable nonetheless. I mean, City is always going to be the best story of a Batman game, but the voice acting in Knight and the return of Scarecrow, this time as the main villain, is so good. I honestly wish the movies actually featured Scarecrow as a main antagonist for once, instead of a side villain like the Dark Knight trilogy. Arkham Knight was also pretty good. I didn't really hate him being Jason Todd, although they did say it was going to be an original villain, so I do see why some people disliked it. But I really love what they did with Jason's character. The DLCs were also alright, not the best, but I liked what they added to the story. Also, the suits look pretty good, but it is annoying how you can only change them from the main menu. Next up is a fairly unknown game, Hulk Ultimate Destruction. Well, by most modern audiences. Like most older superhero games, Ultimate Destruction has a cult following. But unlike games like Web of Shadows, I actually think it's deserved. This game rocks. Sure, it looks aged as hell. That's to be expected as it's well over 18 years old. The developers of this game also made the prototype duology later on, and it definitely shows. The game's story is alright, but it's an original story, so that's pretty cool. And the gameplay is unique. It's chaotic and crazy, which makes it a fantastic game in my eyes. We really need a new Hulk game. Following the disastrous attempt at 3D that was Superman 64, we got another attempt at 3D in the form of the PS1 Spider-Man duology. And it's fantastic. Not only do they show a good connected universe, but they also offer a decent amount of alternate costumes, a fun story, and slightly aged graphics. But they have a charm to them and make the games funnier. The first game, while definitely flawed in comparison to its future successors, is good for its time. Yeah, he is definitely swinging on nothing, but it's still pretty advanced for its time. Oh, and Stan Lee is narrating it. Instant win. And this is one of the best versions of Venom, no doubt about it.
Surf the web, surf the web.
Shut up, Brock, we don't have time.
Interestingly, the second game has 3 versions on different ports, but we'll only talk about the PS1 version, Enter Electro, and it's okay. It's not bad, but it's just basically a safe sequel. No harm in that, but I can't talk much about it aside from the added costumes and the ability to go on the ground for once. Other than that, I think both are pretty good. I should probably mention that I actually managed to play the first Infamous game. I haven't beaten it yet, but I thought I might as well share my thoughts with you. It definitely feels like a PS3 game, but that doesn't mean it's bad, just that it didn't age the best in comparison to its sequel or second son. But it does make you feel like a superhuman. That being said, I really hate the Reapers, Dustmen, and any other enemies with guns. Most annoying game enemies I think I've ever dealt with. Oh, and the Sasha boss fight sucks. Now, a game you might not expect to be on here, but are probably enthused to see, Spider-Man Unlimited. No, not the TV show people hardly watched, the mobile game. Yeah. Spider-Man Unlimited, despite being yet another endless runner in the sea of mobile games the likes of Temple Run or Subway Surfers, had so much to love about it. From the art style to the gameplay to the seemingly endless amounts of costumes and alternate characters, this game was fantastic. Yeah, it did have flaws that other mobile games have, like being owned by Gameloft, but it had an actual story mode with boss fights. Unfortunately, if you wanted to try this out because you thought it sounds great, it doesn't exist. Seriously, it's gone. Discontinued for some stupid reason we still don't know to this day. Wish it had come back already. Hi, Future Scorch here. While I was procrastinating making this video, I found out that someone made a remastered version of Spider-Man Unlimited. It's in its beta stage. I'll link the trailer in the description. It's still getting updates, by the way, and you can play it on your computer right now. Go check out the trailer in the description, and yeah. Moving on. Injustice Gods Among Us was released in 2013 and developed by NetherRealm, the same people behind Mortal Kombat, a series I really need to get back to making videos on. Anyways, Injustice toys with the idea of an evil Superman, which I know we're all tired of by now, which I'll get to later, but at the time it wasn't that overused, to my knowledge anyway. As I was saying, Injustice follows the main DC Universe heroes being brought to an alternate Earth where Joker tricked Superman into killing Lois Lane and all of Metropolis, causing him to kill Joker and slowly become a dictator. There was a whole comic series detailing those 5 years, but that's a whole other thing. Anyway, it's a fighting game that's pretty okay. I never felt attachment to it, so I'm not sure what to say. It's cool, I like the alternate skins, I think it's fun, but Wonder Woman sucks in this game. Like, even the main Wonder Woman looks disgusted. But overall, I think it's a cool game. Oh, and Scorpion's in it for some reason. Cool. And speaking of fighting games, Marvel vs. Capcom. A long-running franchise of fighting games that originated from arcades. The first game is a small roster but otherwise fun, but the second game is a huge upgrade in terms of characters and in terms of enjoyment, and gave the franchise its 3v3 setup. Then there's the third one, which is sadly where the franchise peaked, which we'll get to later. After a decade in between releases, Capcom regained the Marvel license and released a third game, which originally had the subtitle Fate of Two Worlds when it first released. It was pretty good, but got even better with the release of the newer version, Ultimate Marvel vs. Capcom 3. So many new characters like Ghost Rider, Nova, and Virgil. On a real note though, I cannot figure out how to play this correctly. I'm really good at Mortal Kombat, but something about this game just prevents me from getting good at it, I guess. It's still fun as hell though, and surprisingly cheap for its content.
Oh my god.
I miss when games were actually affordable. Last time around, I put Midnight Suns in the mech category, but I think I should have given it more credit. This game is weirdly addicting to play. Like, sure, I get why people were turned off by the game, but despite the gameplay, it's actually quite fun. And the story is pretty enjoyable too, as are most of the characters. Funnily enough, I hated Magic when I first started playing, but over time when I learned why she acts the way she does, I actually warmed up to her. I still don't like her, but I tolerate her. It felt human and realistic. Oh, and the tease of Doctor Doom at the end was so cool. But the game's DLC is kind of eh. Like, Deadpool and Venom are cool, and I know Morbius was on the original team, but who the hell asked for Storm, of all people? Characters aside, there's only like 3 missions for each character, which makes the story far less interesting compared to the main story, and makes it feel like they didn't put much effort into them. Still, I enjoy the game and think you should give it a shot since it's on sale every other month. Probably because it flopped. And I think that wraps up the grade section, but unfortunately, now we get into... Fair warning, this next game I rant about for quite a few minutes. Possibly one of the worst superhero games ever released, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League is such a mess. In my video about it, I only talked about Batman, but the entire damn game is so hastily put together. Why does Captain Boomerang use guns? Hell, every single character uses guns. I've heard the argument that this game is fun with friends, but if a game is only fun with friends, I think that's a problem the game has. It should be fun both alone and with other people, but it's such a mess of a title. Hell, it lost so much of its player base so fast it's not even funny. It's just sad to see the creators of the Arkham games make this crap. I'll summarize my issues with it. I never liked the Suicide Squad, nor did I enjoy either of the movies, but WB somehow thought this was a good idea. It wasn't, especially since it's a looter shooter. Also, most of the characters are insufferable. Harley is supposedly her anti-hero self from the comics, when in this universe, she helped torture Jason Todd and helped kill a kid, yet we're supposed to root for her. Good grief. Then there's Deadshot. Arkham Deadshot is white, yet in this game, they decided to do an entire convoluted plot off screen just to make Deadshot black because of Will Smith.
Yeah.
That, or they're stupid. Why not just use Bloodsport? Deadshot was already white in this universe, so just use the guy who was actually black, and who has a way better costume than this Deadshot. Also, his rivalry with Green Lantern is the dumbest thing of all time. He's a Batman villain. Like, why would he fight Green Lantern just because he put him in jail? That's such a weird and convoluted plot. Then there's Captain Boomerang, who I don't like, but he's better than most of the roster. He has an actual rivalry with the Flash in the comics, although someone like Captain Cold would make more sense, and... okay, that's about it. His voice annoys the hell out of me, and he's just boring. Like, really boring. I mean, the memes are funny, but other than that, I can't enjoy him. But King Shark. Wow. How on earth did they make him, of all people, the best character? Like, how? He's funny, he's interesting, he's the only character to not treat everything like a dumb joke, and he isn't boring like most of the other characters. That being said, didn't he die on Assault on Arkham? Better yet, wasn't Deadshot white in that movie, with his daughter Zoe, and implied to have killed Amanda Waller at the end? Oh, and don't get me started on the actual story of the game. Most of it feels like one bad joke. The squad gets saved by the Flash, then they decide to kill him for no reason, which then leads to him being brainwashed. And then they kill him. With bullets. Then they kill Green Lantern. With bullets. And King Shark just wields his ring somehow. That's not how they work. They literally fly away to find a new host. And besides, if King Shark was really worthy, the ring would expand onto his pinky. Wonder Woman, for some reason, is given more attention than Arkham Batman. Then they make her death this big emotional thing, which is just so weird. Like, really weird. Since when does Harley give a crap about Wonder Woman? God, I'm just so annoyed. Then it gets worse. The Batman dies. To bullets! For the love of...
I never was too bright. Get some new material, jerk off.
Then Superman shows up and dies to bullets! Yeah, they might be gold kryptonite, but can't Superman just kill all of them instantly? And also, and also, the evil Superman trope is boring at this point. Like, I could genuinely care less about it. Where's the good Superman trope? No, I'm serious. A powerful being that chooses to be good is actually interesting. To me, anyway. Yeah, people might still enjoy this trope, but it's starting to run its course, man. Boring. And Brainiac was just stupid. He turns into a copy and paste Flash fight. That's it. No, he doesn't turn into the other members. It is literally just Flash. My guy literally turned into the first guy the squad defeated. And then Waller kills him and that's it. Oh wait, no it isn't. Now the game is like, go defeat the same guy 12 different times over 2 years, lol. And that's it. Don't even get me started on the new Joker season. That ain't the Joker, man. That's the comedian, the amuser, the giggler. Like, the game promised new original stuff, but all you get is reskin stuff to be quote-unquote Jokerized, and to unlock Joker, you have to grind the base game again because they decided to reset you to level 1. Or, you could just buy him for like 15 bucks. And on top of that, there is hardly any story about this Joker.
Put it in me.
And even worse, the Brainiac boss fight is now a Green Lantern reskin, and the next season will be a Superman reskin. I'm done. I'm done. I'm just... Oh, this game sucks so much ass! I'm betting in a few months it's gonna be shut down. Mark my words. I am preying on this game's downfall so hard. Man, that took up a lot of time. I'm sorry about that. I didn't mean to get so angry. This game sucks. I'll be quicker this time. There's not many more games I want to talk about here. Silver Surfer, one of the more underrated Marvel characters, got a game of his own on the NES. And it sucked. Like, it's generally regarded as one of the hardest games on that system. It combines top-down shooter gameplay with a side-scroller, and if you get hit once, you will die. Not only that, but you'll restart the entire damn stage. Oh, then there's Spawn the Eternal. You probably know Spawn, one of Image Comics' most popular characters. Well, he had a game a while back. A very bad game. An atrocious game. A miserable game. Okay, you get the idea. For one, the graphics are just so bad to look at. Some old games have charm in their older graphics, yes, but this is not one of them. The camera is so bad when it just changes. The game is, in contrast to the Silver Surfer game, way too simple and easy, and for some stupid reason, the chains and cape only appear when Spawn's in combat. Overall, it's just not fun at all. Spawn deserves better, man. Then there's Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, a tie-in to the movie of the same name. Look at how they massacred my boy. Okay, I know I wasted a lot of time talking about Suicide Squad, but in my defense, most bad superhero games I already talked about previously. I am not going to dedicate an entire section to the Catwoman game. There's way more mediocre games, or so bad it's good games. That's what we call... Last time around, quite a few people didn't like how I talked about Web of Shadows, so I think I owe all of you an explanation. While the combat is awesome and the boss fights are cool, a lot of the game is held back for being a product of its time and for just not being great in general. This is, by far, one of the worst looking Spider-Man games I've ever seen. Not in terms of graphics necessarily, but it's just really strange to look at. It's mostly Spider-Man that's ugly. Not hard to see why. Venom also looks odd. I can't describe it, but he just looks off. And the facial animations range from being okay to just looking like plastic. Actually, all the animations are like that. Honestly, I can apply that to the whole game. It ranges from being really goddamn cool to the weirdest and unintentionally hilarious moments. But there's not really a fantastic part of the game or a terrible part of the game. It's just kind of meh. I did have fun sometimes, but overall, I just couldn't get into it as other people. Probably because I didn't play it as a kid. Honestly, some stuff we enjoyed as kids, looking back, were just really bad. Nostalgia is one hell of a drug, but enjoy this game if you want. I just can't connect to it for whatever reason. Probably because only the Wii had costumes. But I do hope this game gets a remake or a remaster someday. Now, I said how Marvel vs. Capcom 3 is still huge and fun to this day. Unfortunately, its sequel lacks that by a lot. Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite is genuinely such a downgrade from its predecessor that one has to ask why it's way more expensive. The roster is way smaller than 3, which is always a problem when it comes to fighting game sequels, and the graphics don't have the same level of charm as the last game. The mechanics are also just kind of weird. Instead of a third character, you get an Infinity Stone to use. I kind of like the concept, but the execution is just meh for me, since it could have easily been its own thing. Oh, and this is the first game to implement a story, which is okay. It's not spectacular or anything, but it isn't downright awful, aside from the main villain being a character called Ultron Sigma. No, I'm not kidding. He's a fusion of Ultron and, you guessed it, Sigma from Mega Man, who I know nothing about. A fusion, huh? Sounds familiar. Anyway, the costumes are also just dumb, especially considering the only good ones are locked behind a paywall. You want to look cool without having to pay extra money. Also, Ghost Rider says this.
It's judgment time.
I think that summarizes the care they put into this game. Speaking of fighting games, this game technically counts, but also doesn't. Either way, it gives me an excuse to talk about Mortal Kombat, so yeah. MK vs. DC is one of the most random games I've ever seen, honestly. I assume they were trying to make their own version of Marvel vs. Capcom. I actually think this concept could have worked, but not as a game because it's kind of a mess. For one, this game is the only Mortal Kombat game to be rated teen, which really holds the game back, considering that the gore and violence is toned down, which leads to stuff like this. Yeah, I never played the game, so I can't speak on the gameplay, so let's move on to the story. And oh boy, this one's a doozy. In fact, I generally don't understand anything about it. I don't even know what rage is. And the Wikipedia article is one paragraph. So I'll just skim through it. Raiden punches Shao Kahn into a portal, just as Superman does the exact same thing to Darkseid, which somehow not only fuses the two together, but also the universes. For whatever reason, every character fights and fights and fights until eventually only Raiden and Superman remain. Then they're like, hey, you're not evil, and they beat Dark Khan, the fusion of Shao Kahn and Darkseid after overcoming their rage or something. Then the universes are separated, except that Shao Kahn is in the DC universe, while Darkseid is in the MK one. Darkseid gets trapped in the Netherrealm, and Shao Kahn gets trapped in the Phantom Zone. And that's how the game ends. Yeah. Look, can we just talk about some of these endings? Let's see. Oh yeah, they're just characters becoming other characters. I'm not kidding. Scorpion becomes freaking Darkseid, Sonya becomes Green Lantern, Jax becomes Cyborg, Liu Kang becomes Shazam, Kano becomes Joker for some reason, Joker becomes Shao Kahn, Deathstroke forms a Lin Kuei knockoff, Shazam becomes Liu Kang, I think, Wonder Woman gets a shield that looks like the Deadly Alliance logo, and Green Lantern's ending is just Armageddon. Who let them cook? Look, while this game had good stuff about it, it feels so rushed that I can't fully enjoy it. Let's move on before my brain fries or something. Injustice 2 is honestly a mixed bag. Like, don't get me wrong, this game can be fun, but honestly, I always thought it felt a bit grindy. Like it's just so much effort to get a single gear piece most of the time. Speaking of which, the customization is just okay to me. It's pretty complicated in some areas, despite how cool it may be. Moving on, the roster is actually surprisingly decent. I also think the DLC characters are awesome, like the Ninja Turtles or Raiden and Sub-Zero or even Red Hood. The gameplay overall does kind of feel like an improvement, but the game in general just loses you after a while. Then there's the story, which is the biggest problem in the game. There are so many continuity errors with the comics and plot holes that don't make sense. Let me just say the things I like and don't like about it. For whatever reason, after MKX, NetherRealm has done this weird thing with their cutscenes where the characters feel so rigid. Like, the fighting is slow and dull in cutscenes. It feels so boring. As for the actual story, well, I was bored of it after a while, to be honest. It's so much slower than the last game and not nearly as interesting. Don't get me wrong, the voice acting carries hard, like obviously Kevin Conroy's acting as Batman, but I just couldn't get into it. Maybe it's the lack of the main DC Universe characters, but there's something lacking in the story of Injustice 2. I can't describe it. Overall, I think Injustice 2 is fun to play on its own, but it can feel really boring sometimes. Probably why some people have clicked off by now. If you're still here, congrats. Wow, this ended up being longer than I wanted it to be, huh? Thanks for watching this mess of a video. Honestly, I'm most likely not going to make a part 3 to this, purely because I don't feel like it. I want to talk about more stuff than just superhero games. Don't get me wrong, I will talk about those, but I just want to talk about games in general. So what do you guys think of my picks for these categories? I'm curious to hear your guys' opinions. Either way, I hope you guys enjoyed, and please consider subscribing. Have a good day, and I hope you stick around for the future.